a year ago, around this time, we were actually gathered in Santa Barbara for the last in-person 3C-REN forum. That was a really interesting moment because it was the last time I traveled, and so it's remarkable. And hopefully now, 1 year later, we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. But this online forum has been working great. So it's great to have so many of you here today for this really important topic. So let's just go ahead and get started. I'm Mindy Craig with Blue Point Planning, and I work with 3C-REN, helping them with these forums and other elements on their programs, and have enjoyed working with them for the long term. It's very exciting to have you all here. I'm going to do a quick overview. I know you guys have all been Zoomed to death, but we'll still go over a couple of these elements. Please mute yourself. We can hear your dog and children and other fun things in the backgrounds and leaf blowers. So go ahead and do that. You can raise your hand during the meeting, or more likely use the chat, which is right down here, for comments. As you were going through and you're hearing these great speakers, go ahead and add that in there, and we'll keep monitoring that and making sure that we connect you and add that into our discussion. And also we'll have that at the very end of the meeting, and we'll make sure to have that going as part of our record. We will be using breakout rooms today, so when we get to that, we'll go a little bit over what it is, but I'm sure, again, you've seen that. We'll have a screen that'll pop up and it'll ask you to join a breakout room, and then you'll be sent off into a smaller space, and you'll get continued messages. Hopefully it's fairly obvious what's going on that. But again, if you have questions during the meeting, you have a technical difficulty, again, you can chat that, and our great staff here will help you work through it. So we have a great group of 3C-REN staff here. You'll see them because they have the beautiful mountains and the 3C-REN Energy Code Connect. I can't see all of them right now because I'm sharing my screen, but top of the list, you have Jordan Garbayo, Sean Burns, Ian Logan are here, as well as many others, as well as the consultant team who are helping them. So what are we trying to do today? As in all of the 3C-REN forums, we're really here to help build and support the Tri-County region to get them better prepared for all of the changes that are coming down the pipeline. But today we're explaining the changes in the 2019 Energy Code that allow installers to replace domestic gas water heaters with electric heat pumps. We really want to talk about the business development opportunities that will enable you and your industry to become early adopters and build that market here in the Tri-County. And we are also want to share some solutions to some of the clear market barriers that will help you to do that building of their business. And we also want to connect you with others in the industry. We have some great statewide experts here on this panel and in our conversations, and local ones, and we want to have you be able to connect with that. So we're doing a meet and greet at the end of the day, which will help you to do that. So what we're going to do today, we have a jam-packed agenda today, filled with great speakers. We're going to have a very quick introduction and a little bit of context building about 3C-REN and the programs. But then we're going to jump right into some case studies around where this is actually happening. Our first one is on the multifamily sector. We're going to do a breakout so you can get to know people in the room, so to speak, and also give us some of your insights on some of the perceptions and the realities around heat pump water heaters. We're then going to go into some of the nitty gritty of what is building electrification, and especially of what is the heat pump water heaters and why are they important, and why are we having an entire day around that. We're going to go over some market research we've done on the heat pump water heaters, talk about some solutions to how you might build up that marketplace. We're going to have another case study on single families with solarponics. And then we're going to close the official meeting, but then we have a half an hour at the very end, which is a speaker meet and greet. And that's going to give you an opportunity to go into a break room with our speakers and have more in-depth conversations and more questions. So we're trying to emulate that idea that when you're in person, you get to talk to people a little bit more. You have all those questions, and that's what that's about. So hopefully you can stay and enjoy that piece. So I'm just going to go quickly over our great presenters. This is slide 1 of 2. So we have Panama Bartholomy from the Building Decarbonization Coalition, Todd Broussard from the People's Self-Help Housing, Amy Dryden from the Association for Energy Affordability, AEA often called, Farhad I'm going to get your last name wrong, Farhad. I'm sorry, Farhad Farahmand from TRC. We have Ryan Montague from Solarponics and Frank Scotty from Solarponics, who will be giving our case study at the end. Michaela Topi from Frontier Energy. And last but certainly not least, Larry Waters from Electrify My Home. So these guys will be talking to us throughout the morning. All right, so now I'm going to turn this over to Jordan to give us a little context.
Awesome. Thank you, Mindy. Good morning. My name, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Jordan Garbayo, and I'm the program manager for the Energy Code Connect program for 3C-REN. We're excited to deliver this forum and really dive into what heat pump water heater market looks like in the Tri-County region. As Mindy mentioned, we have a fantastic lineup of speakers today that will highlight the benefits of and challenges associated with heat pump water heating in new construction and retrofit applications. So, however, before we jump into the main content of our day, and given I see a lot of new faces and names joining us today, I wanted to share a little bit about who and what 3C-REN is. For those of you who have heard me give this presentation before many, many times, you're in luck. You don't have to hear me do it again. We have a new short video that we developed, which is much more entertaining than I am. So, Mindy, please roll it.
We're 3C-REN, the Tri-County Regional Energy Network. Our name says it all. We are 3 counties working together to improve energy efficiency, helping our region meet state and regional climate goals. And we're a network connecting local governments, businesses, and neighborhoods to bring energy savings, workforce development, and economic opportunities to our communities. 3C-REN programs are making our buildings energy smart and helping upskill, diversify, and grow our building industry workforce.
Currently, 3C-REN offers 3 programs: home energy savings, building performance training, and Energy Code Connect. 3C-REN's building performance training program works with building professionals, helping them understand building energy so they can deliver the best service to their clients. Building performance training offers classes on topics like HVAC systems, heat pump technology, zero net energy, and other foundations of building science. We work with local architects, contractors, real estate professionals, and others to encourage a forward-thinking approach to energy efficiency, supporting businesses and adding value for customers at the same time.
Our expert instruction helps develop the skills needed to create high-performance buildings where every element works together as a system, creating greater efficiency, comfort, health, and resilience. Visit the 3C-REN website to search and register for classes, or contact us to schedule a customized presentation.
3C-REN Energy Code Connect makes code compliance easy. Energy Code Connect helps the region meet state climate goals with trainings, forums, and personalized energy code support for building industry professionals. Energy Code coaches answer technical questions about modeling and compliance reporting to support building departments or private firms. Coaches can review building plans, meet with local building departments, and provide on-site construction meetings to discuss your specific energy code and California Green Building Standards needs. 3C-REN targeted trainings and regional forums make it easier to use, comply with, and enforce California's energy code. Contact us online or by phone for support.
Home energy savings helps residents and building owners lower utility bills while creating healthier, more comfortable homes. From smaller, free upgrades like a new smart thermostat to deeply discounted ones like replacing an old, inefficient water heater with a safer, ultra-efficient heat pump water heater, 3C-REN makes projects affordable and the installation process simple. They can also advise customers on financing options, identify other incentive programs to layer on, and help plan for future upgrades. Visit our website to learn more. We're 3C-REN. Learn more about how we can help you at 3c-ren.org.
Awesome. So we're really pumped to share that with you this morning. You witnessed history today as the first people outside of our organization to watch it. If you have any questions at all about 3C-REN or about our programs, feel free to chat any of us with the 3C-REN background like I have, or any other 3C-REN logos that you'll see around today. We've got a lot of us on the call today. So a little bit of context to help us navigate through this heat pump water heater journey over the next couple of hours. So why heat pump water heaters and why now? And why is 3C-REN specifically focusing on this? Well, I'm glad you asked, and I'm sure those questions have been bubbling in your brain for a while. So there are a few reasons. First, there's an obvious link to California's energy code and the all-electric pathway that was developed in the 2019 iteration of the code. Along with the new code pathways comes additional demand from customers and stakeholders across the state and within our region. That demand for these types of technologies has really has a real business opportunity for a new and, just as important, our existing workforce, which we will highlight today. In addition, many of our region's climate zones have fewer cooling and heating degree days, but water heating is a constant across the state and the Tri-County territory, so it's worth focusing on for us. Lastly, there are a ton of resources and frankly dollars that are being directed to this technology that and others across the state that we feel the Tri-County region should be able to utilize and take advantage of. Next slide, please. 3C-REN is doing a lot to help bridge these gaps for heat pump water heaters in our region. Whether it's connecting people to resources and facilitating conversations like our forum today, developing and delivering trainings on various topics surrounding building science principles and the energy code, and or working with manufacturers to supply houses to better reach audiences we normally could not. We're committed to bringing relevant and valuable information and resources to you when you need it. 3C-REN's Home Energy Savings Program has also partnered with People Self-Help Housing to deliver a 3-building multifamily retrofit project in Santa Barbara County. We are thrilled to share the details of this project with you next, but before I introduce Todd, I want to note that throughout the morning, our presenters will be sharing a lot of the information I detailed earlier and more. We encourage you to please ask questions and engage with our presenters, but please be respectful. With that, I would like to introduce Todd Broussard. He is the Director of Construction with People Self-Help Housing and is going to share a bit about the projects they are working on in Santa Barbara County and beyond. Todd?
Make sure to unmute yourself, Todd.
Thank you. Thank you, Jordan. Can you bring up my slides? Next slide. As Jordan mentioned, my name is Todd Broussard. I'm the Director of Construction for People Self-Help Housing. This first slide just kind of gives a little bit of a background of who we are and our mission statement. So with a mission to build affordable homes and site-based services, we offer opportunities to change lives and strengthen communities. People Self-Help Housing is the longest serving nonprofit housing organization on the Central Coast. This is actually our 50th year anniversary this year. So we've been around for quite some time. We started off in building the self-help housing. And we then developed into an organization that then started building multifamily housing as well. We have over 200 employees spread out amongst the 3 counties. So we're a fairly large organization and we do a lot of construction around, and we own and operate all of our own inventory. We don't get rid of it. We keep it for the duration. We support low-income families, farm workers, seniors, and veterans, and provide welcoming environments for those living with disabilities and formerly homeless. Along with building and managing beautiful and accessible neighborhoods, we offer a wide range of services to promote health, well-being, and career services. At People Self-Help, we bring so much more than housing. We build resilient neighborhoods, places residents are proud to call home. Like I said, we kind of work in three regions primarily and a little bit into Monterey County. Over our last 50 years, we've partnered with 1,200 owner-builder households. That means that these individuals put in sweat equity into their homes and they own the homes afterwards. So it's a great opportunity for them to build a home and then build equity and pursue the life of being a homeowner and the security that brings. We've constructed over 1,900 rental units with over 5,000 residents, over 52 sites in the 3 counties. And right now, currently, we own 19 additional sites that are in different stages of development. And we're obviously trying to face the balancing act of all of the electrification requirements in the new Title 24 within the designs of 19 different projects currently. It's about $350 million worth of new construction sitting on our table right now. So thank you. With regards to the current efforts that we're doing the conversions on, it's 3 sites. It's LADM, LADM2, Riverview. It's about 190 units. It's kind of a holistic look at trying to make the sites more energy efficient. So the first effort that we're focusing on was the solar conversion. You can see on the slide that we are targeting fairly large solar additions to the properties, hoping to achieve 70% or more offset at each one of the sites, which then works its way into the actual conversion of the properties to electric, which includes the hot water heater pumps and the electric heater pump water heater, and that switch out. So that's all been going pretty well, but there is more than just that component to it. So next slide, please. Some of the additional efforts that we're putting into the sites is installing LED light fixtures throughout the whole entire site, both common and inside the residence, and providing LED bulbs for lamps and so forth that the tenants own. Next slide, please. Providing smart power strips to the residents, sealing up ductwork. That one actually is pretty significant because I don't think people realize how much energy is lost through air bleeding out through their HVAC systems. And all these buildings were built in the 90s or before, so they're quite old. So that should have a fairly large impact on this overall effort as well. Installing smart thermostats in the units. Next slide, please. Replacing HVAC filters, installing flow reducing aerators and sinks and shower heads, reseating the insulation. So trying to seal up the envelopes to keep all of that heat and cooling capacity in the actual units is pretty important, I think, overall as well. Installing weather stripping in the units to, again, try to keep the energy usage down inside the envelopes of the units. With regards to the conversion from gas hot water heaters to electrics, the only real challenge that I think we've collectively faced on our projects is the recovery time on the electric hot water heaters has been somewhat of an issue. We've actually gone back in and had to turn up the hot water heaters to produce as much hot water as they possibly can to accommodate the lifestyles of the individuals that are living in the units. But we've been able to overcome that. And with the total package, the overall benefit is still significant, even though we're having to use the units at their maximum capacity to keep up with the water usage when people are coming home from work, getting cleaned up, doing the dishes, and making dinner. The overall impact, I think, is going to be significant on their monthly costs. We had an interesting opportunity with regards to this effort, is that we had a little bit of a pilot program that we were able to bring in the manufacturers and our maintenance crews and the residents and provide them education on the impacts and what the new hot water heaters were going to look like and what it was going to provide to them on a go forward basis. Next slide, please. Some of our general goals for the effort obviously was, and one that I didn't actually put on the slide, was to make sure that the tenants didn't have to adjust to the effort, that they were going to be able to conduct their daily business and lives the same way they did before the conversion of the hot water heaters. Was really important to us. You know, given the fact that it's a low income housing environment, we wanted to make sure that they were comfortable with what we were doing and understood the effort. And obviously providing a safe and healthy place for the tenants to live was high on our priority, and reducing utility costs. We're hoping, again, collectively with all of the effort that both the hot water heaters have provided and the solar in conjunction, we're hoping to take utility bills from hundreds of dollars potentially down to tens of dollars, which will be a significant benefit to the families that are living at our sites. And just simple things, better lighting for the residents, better insulation, mechanical equipment, which they may not realize up front, but the long-lasting impacts for them is significant. And greater efficiency overall at our sites. The interesting reality is but we're also doing our common spaces, and everything that we save in our common spaces goes back to our services. So back to our educational services and our social services. And those are all done in-house. We have departments that provide all of that additional benefit and services. So we'll be able to take that money from these savings and then translate that back to additional services at these properties, which is pretty fantastic for us. Next slide, please. So this is of the partners that we actually went into to make all of this work. The interesting reality is the 3C-REN program and the LIWIT program, without having both of those on board, I don't think I would be part of this presentation, because I don't think we would have been able to get there with regards to being able to convert the hot water heaters. 3C-REN is supporting the cost of the hot water heaters themselves, and the LIWIT project, our program, is actually helping provide the labor that goes into it and the rest of the conversion and the solar. So as a package, those both really had to exist for us to be able to move forward. The other realities is getting the jurisdictions on board early on, and we were able to do that with the pilot program. So they came in and they were willing to participate with the hot water heaters early on, prior to taking on 190 units, and come up with an understanding of what we were doing, how we were doing it, and really what it meant to do these conversions. And the cities were great. Both cities were on board, thought it was an amazing effort, and really have helped accommodate it. Because at the end of the day, we have to have hot water at the end of every single day. So we have to be able to take something out, run new circuits, get it plugged back in, turned on. And the jurisdictions allow us to continue to move forward without calling for a inspection every day on each unit that we've completed. So it's really been a good partnership amongst all of those individuals and companies. Next slide, please. So as a general recap of where we're at, the progress, this is actually a little behind. We're at LADM, we're at 98%. Everything's been up and running. That effort was 62 units. It took us about 5 weeks to convert. And that's from everything from the unit, replacing the hot water heater, the circuit, and all the energy efficiencies, and sheetrock, painting, everything in and out in 5 weeks, 62 units. And the only problem we're having here is that COVID has affected our supply chain, excuse me, a little bit with regards to the simple things like the venting in the doors. It's the hot water heaters were all there. It's just the venting in the doors we haven't been able to pick up. LADM2, we're actually at about 65%. We're finding a little bit of challenges now with regards to getting the hot water heaters, but Caps Low has done an amazing job. We've been driving, literally, they've been driving to San Francisco or to Los Angeles to pick up units to bring then back onto the Central Coast and get these things done. And Riverview starts in about a week. The longest effort was LADM, and it took us, again, all in about 5.5 weeks. We were able to do 4 units a day with a 9-person crew, and that's just focused on the hot water heaters. So we really did become efficient, and we are continuing that efficiency as we move forward. The overall cost per unit, this is electrical, patch paint, and the actual installation and cost of the hot water heaters, is at about $4,500. It's actually $4,508 to be exact. So with that said, the overall impact of all the additional work that's happening around it should really be a huge benefit to the tenants, and really been an interesting education for myself, getting us to this point, and hopefully we'll wrap it up and we'll have some really positive results here in the short term. The solar effort won't be done until June, so we won't know the full effects of the total package until, you know, sometime after June. But no, I'm encouraged, and I think it's gonna be a great project. So I'm hopefully I didn't go too far over my 10 minutes, but I'm open for any questions. Please tell me I wasn't on mute the whole time. I don't think I was.
Hi, so that's great, Todd. If people would just go ahead and put their comments in the chat, that'd be great. We also have some time coming up to talk to Todd. Todd, do you have, are you guys planning to do this to a lot of your units? Or, you know, go all the way through everything? Or is this going to be kind of a very targeted stuff? Or what are you thinking there?
We're hoping, we've built a really strong relationship with both funding agencies. And I think that collectively, it's a little bit unique the way we were able to establish the funding. So we're hoping that we can keep that partnership together and start targeting more of our units, our sites, and continue to develop this. AEA on their side was able to target these 3 sites specifically because it was farm worker housing. Mm-hmm. So again, it's putting those funding sources together will make that determination for us. We've had to supplement some of the cost of doing this effort, but it is overall, it was less than 10%.
That's great.
Our contribution.
That is awesome. And so I think what we'll do is we're going to move into our breakout room. Thanks so much, Todd. And, you know, I think one of the things that a lot of concerns on electrification is like, how much does it cost? Is it feasible? Can we do it? You know, there's all these barriers. And I think one of the reasons we wanted to start with Todd is to sort of show, hey, you know, on this scale, we can do stuff. This is possible. Obviously, he talked about all his partners. So what we're going to have you guys do is we're going to send you out to random breakout rooms. This is where you'll get on your screen, join a room. You'll have about 8 minutes or so to talk with the folks in your room. And what we'd like you to do is introduce yourself really quickly. And then maybe talk a little bit about what do you think is the most exciting possibilities of electrification, and where do you see as the biggest barrier? Hopefully we'll be talking about both of those things as we go through today's meeting. And then when you come back, we'd love you to share some of your highlights in the chat. So I think, Sean, you're going to send us out to the breakout rooms?
Yeah, I'll do that right now.
Great. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our room. So please, if you have some thoughts or big ideas that came out of that conversation, throw them in the chat and we can share those. And I don't know if anybody, maybe from our 3C-REN team, did you guys hear anything of interest that, you know, came out of that? We'll just let you unmute yourselves.
Hi, this is Ashley.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a few things. You know, we had a diverse group of people, and you know, what they found most exciting were, you know, things like removal of gas fumes and increased indoor air quality, a pathway to, you know, carbon emission reductions that isn't extremely disruptive to the sort of the existing way that we're doing things, and just biggest barriers, you know, cost, customer awareness, and that cooking on electric is impossible.
Yeah, those sound like pretty much the barriers we hear all the time. So I think that that pretty much covers it, Ashley. So let me go ahead and I'm going to introduce our set of presenters right now. Amy Dryden, she's the Director of Strategic Innovations with the Association of Energy Affordability, often referred to as AEA. I think most of us kind of may know that. And then Farhad Faramand, he's a project manager with TRC, and they're going to give us sort of a 101 on building electrification, because we all kind of know about it, but do we really know about it? And these guys really have the details to give us the insights about what this is and what we should be thinking about. So I think, Amy, you're going to start us off, right?
Yes. Thank you, Mindy. Good morning, everybody. Should have taken my drink a little bit earlier. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Amy Dryden with AEA. As Mindy mentioned, we're a nonprofit dedicated to energy efficiency and decarbonization in new and existing buildings, really in order to foster and maintain affordability, healthy housing in communities. And particularly, we're focused on low income. So we do this through technical assistance, program implementation, training, codes and standards, and R&D projects to kind of advance the industry. So as Mindy mentioned, let me start my timer. I'm going to talk to you about Building Electrification 101, give you a little bit of a lay of the landscape, and then kind of close it out with at least a pretty high level, like what is a heat pump, kind of basics, just to hopefully set the stage for all the follow-on presentations that are going to be amazing. Oh, I'm not controlling the slides.
I do.
Next slide, please. So first off, what is beneficial electrification? Like, what are we talking about? And kind of pretty simple, right? It's using clean electricity to power homes in a safer and cheaper and smarter way, right? Help us meet our energy needs in our home, as well as our carbon neutrality goals in California, and I'll talk about those. So it's really replacing our gas appliances with high performing, clean, super efficient electric appliances. And I heard some of that, sounded like some of that came up in some of our discussions before, right? So it's a transitioning off of natural gas. Next slide. So if we think about this beneficial electrification, why would we be thinking and tackling buildings? Well, if we look at overall just the energy use within the buildings in itself, not necessarily from generation, right? Buildings have 25% of our emissions. And so that's pretty significant. It's definitely seen as low-hanging fruit, right? And so it's critical that we address, as you can see in this kind of donut pie chart there, both buildings and transportation. And a lot of activities are occurring in both of those tracks today. And as we think about our goals for clean energy in California, as our electricity grid gets cleaner, and this came up in our discussion group, right? Then emissions from natural gas in our homes end up becoming a greater portion of that pie, right? Or our vehicles. Next slide. So when we think about, Mindy, you can just kind of keep clicking through.
Okay.
And I'll just kind of talk through them. So when we think about, the emissions in our buildings, like what are the end uses that are we talking about? And so the first one that came up there, as Minnie clicked through, was water heating, right? It's the largest slice of our pie. Jordan mentioned it earlier. We're typically using it 365 days a year. In multifamily buildings, it's probably about 40% of your load. Todd was talking about kind of that impact for their project as well. So that's a big opportunity, which is also why we're talking about heat pump water heaters today, because regardless of our climate zone, it's a major component. Next, I would say we can look at our space heating, which is about 35%. We have a lot of natural gas use, from wall furnaces to forced air systems, varying use of them, right, depending on where you live. And then the other three are kind of lower: cooking, spas, pools, and dryers. What I think is kind of interesting about the cooking one, while it may be a small percentage of our gas load, it definitely is a contributor to kind of our indoor air quality, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And also probably one of our hardest loads kind of to shift or adjust. And as somebody also mentioned, probably the one that meets the most resistance maybe in the marketplace right now, which it shouldn't. But we'll get there. So next slide, please. So just for the benefits, I want to go through these. I kind of sometimes put the safety and the health together. So really on the safety side, as we're thinking about electrification, we're pulling combustion appliances out of our homes, right? So that's, you know, not just dealing with the piping and the leaks then in themselves, but also any contributions of combustion gases in our homes. So we're eliminating NOx and CO. The impacts of that, we often don't hear as much about CO poisoning as we do and hospitalizations as we do a CO deaths related to carbon monoxide poisoning, but those exist. But really, if we think about those combustion gases in our home, they produce, you know, harmful indoor pollutants such as nitrogen dioxide, carbon monoxide, formaldehyde, ultrafine particles, right? And so that's all in our home. So by removing those, we're minimizing those pollutants in our homes. And on average, we spend like 60% of our time inside. I would probably alter that to like 98% given in 2020, maybe for some folks, given kind of our shift in some of our lifestyles. And so improving that indoor air quality is really a big benefit. In particular, as I mentioned, gas stoves, while a low percentage of our total gas usage, we're seeing a lot of evidence coming out now about gas cooking being particularly bad for indoor air quality and health, and having more adverse effects on folks that may have asthma or other kind of respiratory conditions. From the climate, this is pretty clear. It reduces our greenhouse gas emissions. It's climate friendly. If we're going all electric, we can offset that with clean energy in line with our state goals. And they put in resiliency. This is a big issue for California. As we all know, we've been navigating a lot of different conditions over the past several years, particularly due to wildfires. One of the things, you know, we've been looking at is, yes, we have had issues with power shutoffs, but all of our modern gas equipment includes electricity to it, right? For starters, for fans, et cetera. And definitely after power outages, electricity is the first to go on. In addition, we're seeing a lot more support in terms of battery and storage that can be supported with electricity. And lastly, but certainly not least, and you'll hear about it, you heard about it from Todd, and you'll hear about it from future presenters as well, is the cost, that they're cheaper to build and operate, you know, and particularly if they're paired with favorable electric rates and PV, and really building electrification is kind of the low-hanging fruit to achieve our climate goals as well. Next slide. So if we think about this just kind of quickly in the loading order, and again, I was really excited to hear Todd talk about it too, because he set it up really nicely. Kind of our energy efficiency and conservation is first and foremost. So we kind of reduce our loads, kind of minimize how much we're using overall. And then we look at that and figure out how we can electrify. And so from like the California Energy Commission standpoint, really kind of electrification of our buildings, and I would say as well as our transportation, is kind of our low-hanging fruit. Once we kind of get through there, then we can start looking at lower carbon fuels and other sources to kind of really take down our emissions. But if we think just about our building stock and what we can do with that, next slide, please. We can look at, based on a study from E3, I mean, we can get 60% reduction of our emissions just by doing whole building electrification, new building electrification, and really reduce that. So you can see there in the graph of like 45 to 82% reduction, you know, over time, like thinking about the mixed fuel. And if we are eliminating natural gas appliances from those mixed fuel buildings going to all electric. So the calculus is there, the numbers are there, it really makes sense, it's low hanging fruit. And can you go to the next slide, please? And as we look at the policy landscape that's kind of supporting this, many of us who've been in the industry, the building industry for a long time, have been, you know, ingrained with an energy efficiency, straight energy efficiency kind of perspective. And there's a shift now as we look at the interactions of greenhouse gas emissions in buildings in our environment and how do we get there, right? And so it's energy efficiency plus reducing our emissions in our buildings, and we can do that by electrification. So we think way back to AB 32 in 2006, that kind of set the stage for this. we've had this slew of legislation that has set targets for ourselves in terms of 60% clean energy by 2030, all the way up to carbon neutrality in 2045. And the stepwise progression that you see in the graph there is just showing you the building code cycle. And the reason why I put that in there is because a lot of times like that may be what's in our heads in terms of what we're responding to because of projects we're delivering or planning or installing on. And so the progression of the code is looking to align with, hopefully looking to align with all of these targets. And Farhad's going to go into a deeper dive into like how it's doing it now and what it's going to be, what we're looking at for like 2022. So while the code and policy is moving in this direction, you know, in this stepwise progression, local jurisdictions, next slide, please, are really looking to accelerate the market. And so right now, you know, it's to meet local climate goals and provide community benefits that are essential for kind of our healthier communities. And you can see there's 2 jurisdictions on here in the Tri-County area, soon to be a 3rd. But with over 42 jurisdictions have adopted ordinances to favor all electric buildings because it's possible and because of those multiple benefits that I talked about earlier. Next slide. So the policy landscape's moving forward, kind of codes and standards and regulations are kind of moving in that direction. Jurisdictions are kind of embracing this from the multiple benefits and really to help that market transformation. And Jordan touched on this in his introduction in terms of some of the strategies that 3C-REN is doing. There's a lot of expansion of funding and education. And Todd mentioned the layers of funding put together. So we're having training and education in forums like this, as well as more deeper dive technical trainings, kind of being provided across the state from a number of different entities. And incentive programs are starting to shift, whether they're existing programs, they're adding electrification or strategies to kind of support that, or new programs that are emerging. And I think we'll hear about some of those later on today that are really focused on low carbon space heating and conditioning. Next slide. So can we do this with all electricity? Can we do this? Can we meet our goals? Can we address all of these conditions in our home? Next. Just so I'd say emphatically, yes, we can do it. There's challenges, there's barriers, there's learning new technology, there's gaining comfort with it. Like, what is an induction stove? Do I like it? How do I use it? How do I maximize it? Water heating, we're going to take a deep dive into that today. Right, in terms of what do I have to consider with this installation? But yes, we can definitely do it. And as we think about kind of some of the key technologies, barring the induction, but if we look at kind of this slide here, space heating, water heating, and I'm just going to pull out the dryer image there and stuff, we're really looking at heat pump technology, right? That is a technology that's integrated to all of these appliances that are going to help us achieve this with a really high efficiency system. So all of our gas appliances can be, you know, replaced with this rapidly expanding. We're seeing more products in the marketplace and evolving from heat pump water heaters, both for individuals or central systems, to mini splits, inverter package thermal heat pumps for space heating and cooling, to efficient induction cooktops and stoves. We can get there. And I will say, just as a side note, 60% of the country, the rest of the country, has all electric space heating, and 40% of that is done with heat pumps in new construction. So there, it's happening. It's on the ground. Next slide, please. Let's go quickly here. So what is a heat pump? Many of you probably know. Many of you have been in the industry. Many of you may be learning about it. So hopefully some of these appliances look familiar. And you can see, what is it doing? It's moving cold to warm. The arrow should give you the key. Refrigerator going cold to warm out. Heat pump water heater on the right-hand side the other way. So our simple definition of what the heck's a heat pump and what does it do? Next slide. Maybe. It moves heat from one place to another using a refrigerant, right? So just like the air conditioner, just like the refrigerator you saw, it kind of moves it. It's really that simple. and which really makes them most efficient. And so you can almost stop there in terms of like wrapping your head around what it occurs. But if you want to kind of go a little deeper, next slide, please. I can't remember back to my physics days of high school, but I know we did cover these kind of basic principles. And so when we think about the heat pumps and the refrigerant cycle and how this is happening, it just deals with two basic principles, right? The first is things move from high concentrations to low concentrations, basic principle, right? So we're thinking of things moving from high pressure to low pressure, right? You can think about water moving through the pipes in your system, might be something we're more familiar with. The second principle to think about is that if we compress something or put pressure on it or increase pressure on it, it's going to heat up, right? It's going to gain heat. And if we reduce that pressure, it's going to release heat. So as we think about this cycle, by alternating that pressure on the refrigerant, we can change its temperature, and then we can look to either release or absorb heat, right? And so we can release or absorb it to the indoor or outdoor, depending on what we're doing. And for space conditioning, right, we want it to go both ways. So we can provide heating or cooling. With things like the water heater, we're really looking at kind of like a one way. We only want to bring heat into our tank of water and expel the cool air. So next slide. So just quick dive into the heat pump water heater. There's our image there of an integrated heat pump water heater, right? So it's pulling from heat from the hot air across the coil, absorbing it, delivering it to the tank of water, and expelling cool, dry air. In that regard, we'll talk probably here a little bit more about installation, kind of configurations and considerations based on this to make sure we're not inadvertently cooling places we don't want to cool. So with the heat pump water heater, what's so great about them? I think they're pretty cool. I know there's a lot of other people here I think they're pretty cool and things to learn about them. One, they're electric, so we can offset it with PV, which is really great. They're super efficient. So if we think about like a condensing gas storage, that's like 92%. That's as efficient as we can get. Electric resistance is 100%. These are 300%, right? It's the reverse of a refrigerator, right? So we're gaining heat versus expelling heat. And I mentioned that. The other thing that I just wanted to touch on pretty quickly is that it can be used for thermal storage, which I think is a really interesting thing. You know, Todd brought up the idea of adjustments and how to configure it. And so there's set point temperatures and there's modes, and we can figure out how to really maximize the operation of these units to, one, ensure that all occupants receive like the hot water delivery that they want, as well as think about the ability to minimize our use during grid peak. So it's pretty awesome in that regard. So as we're thinking about this, electrification is happening. Today, we're focusing on heat pump water heaters and really get into kind of what the code's requiring, what's the opportunity in the market, how do we do it technically, and what are those costs, and how do they impact installation and operation, and how do they align with renewables and rate structures. So hopefully this has given at least like a foundation so we can take a deeper dive throughout the day or this morning. That's what we're here for, talk about heat pump water heaters.
Great, Amy. I'm going to head right over to Farhad. I think we have a great things going on in the chat, so we can get to that after Farhad's. So Farhad, you're on.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for your time this morning. I'll describe a little bit in detail the all-electric prescriptive code pathway, as well as the performance pathway approaches. So we have two pathways that are important to understanding code compliance. One is prescriptive. This is, you do exactly what the code says. There's no trade-offs. This is common for alterations. On the performance pathway, this is typically modeled in simulation software, and you can trade off measures. If you have a bigger window, you can install a more efficient water heater or HVAC system. That's mostly done in new construction. Can you click forward, Mindy, please? So what happened in 2016, Title 24, was electrification was actually deterred. There were no prescriptive pathway options available for installing heat pumps in new construction, and the performance pathway actually penalized electricity usage. However, in 2019, we realized that decarbonization needs to occur with a heavy hand from electrification. So the prescriptive pathway is now available for every single appliance, and the performance pathway does not penalize electrification because your baseline is now electric. If you install gas appliances, your baseline is gas. So there's kind of this dual baseline under the current code. And you'll see later, I'll describe that actually is going to change. There's going to be another single baseline, but I'll get into that in a bit later. So this slide describes how for water heating, like this table is an example of how for water heating, there is a prescriptive pathway available for new construction, for additions, for alterations. And I'm going to step through these in more detail in the next few slides. But I just wanted to make it clear that there are, here are the code sections, and there's multiple options available. If you click forward, Mindy, the same is true for heat pump space heating. The heat pump space heating, the options are very similar to in that table. Stoves and clothes dryers, there's no fuel requirements for those. If you are doing the performance path, you're compared to a like-for-like fuel, so there's no penalty for electricity. On the pool heater side, you can definitely install heat pumps. The COP needs to be over 3.5, which is very, very common for pool heat pumps. And you can even go electric resistance if you pair that with solar thermal. On the fireplace side, there's no dictated energy budget here. It's really just kind of a safety measures and general energy conservation measures that are not fuel specific. So it is possible to build all electric for every single appliance or retrofit any home to be all electric. I want to step through on the heat pump water heater in detail here. So in the orange box, you'll see mandatory requirements. This is for any water heater. Even if you install a gas water heater, the energy code requires a 240 volt, three conductor 10 gauge branch copper circuit and a condensate drain. And this is the intent here is so that you can electrify easily in the future. There's no major retrofit costs associated for any, this is for new construction homes in additions. Now, if you choose to go with the prescriptive heat pump water heater path, you first have to start by not installing that heat pump water heater outside. It just needs to be in a garage in a conditioned space. And then there's two options available for you downstream of that. Prescriptive option 1, you go with standard efficiency. And if you choose a standard efficiency heat pump water heater, you have to do one of two other things. So you either install compact hot water and drain water heat recovery, or you can install a couple extra panels of solar PV on your roof. Now remember, Jordan, one of his chat answers here was solar is already required on all new construction. So you would have to just add another couple panels if you choose to install a standard efficiency water heater. Your second option, much simpler, you go with a high efficiency heat pump water heater, a NEA Tier 3. And I'm going to describe what NEA Tier 3 specifically means in a couple slides, but that's your high efficiency option. Let's move forward. Similar kind of mindset on the alteration side. So if natural gas is connected to your water heater, again, your heat pump water heater needs to be not outside in a garage conditioned space. A shed is fine. And then you again have two options. One's a standard efficiency option. The second is a NEA Tier 3 high efficiency option. If you go with your standard efficiency, you have to make sure that you install it on an R10 rigid surface and it's demand response capable. There's one other option, if you move forward, Mindy, please, that is if there's no natural gas at the water heater location, you can actually install electric resistance if you wanted to. And that's actually one thing that is changing going forward into the 2022 code. The only option, if there's no natural gas, is going to have to be heat pump water heater. So this is a very fundamental technology for our decarbonized future that the state's recognizing. Let's move forward. So what's Tier 3? What is NEA Tier 3? Well, first, NEA is the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance. That's a group of Pacific Northwest utilities and energy efficiency organizations. They have very cold weather. So it's really hard to extract heat from when it's really cold outside. So they're super invested and they have really clean electricity because they have a lot of hydro and dams. So they're super invested in trying to make heat pump water heaters work. They came up with their own very rigorous test standard and categorization criteria. There are a lot of requirements for NEA Tier 3. One of those is sound. The dBA needs to be below 55. You have to have demand response capabilities. Your energy efficiency rating needs to be over 2.6. So, I kind of want to introduce this concept. And if we go to the next slide, I actually will show you that this is not a novel concept. This is something that the industry has been well prepared for decades. Or not decades, I should say, for the last several years. A.O. Smith, Bradford White, Lochinvar, Rheem, they have several models available. Many other manufacturers have models available that meet the Tier 3 specification. I've provided a link here for all of the NEA-rated heat pump water heaters, as well as some other efficiency requirements if you're looking to just go with the standard approach. But these products are currently available. Some more notes on demonstrating code compliance. All projects require at least 2 or 3 certificates. If you're doing a heat pump water heater, you have to be mindful of those prescriptive pathways and the performance options that I mentioned earlier. But you're going to fill out your CF1R. The installer will fill out their CF2R. It's important that the CF2R matches the CF1R. That's what the building inspector is going to be checking for. If you choose to do some of those compact hot water or drain water heat recovery measures, there would be a CF3R form, but that's not compulsory with a heat pump water heater necessarily if you go with a high efficiency model. Here's your basic checklist for code compliance. You need to have a dedicated 240 volt, 30 amp circuit with a visible AC disconnect. That's an electrical code component. You need to have a condensate drain that can go to sewer or to outside. This is not the same kind of condensate that a condensing gas water heater would have. This is the condensate that forms on the outside of your cold water glass or beer glass. It's just water. So this can go to outside, this can go to sewer. Make sure your heat pump water heater matches your CF1R form. Insulate all your piping. And of course, you have a very heavy storage tank. You got to seismically brace that. Where's the energy code going? So if you look at that timeline at the bottom right here, in February, the California Energy Commission released their first draft of the energy code. And what was contained in that energy code is on all these bullets here. They have the 240 volt electric ready requirement expanded from just being for water heating to cooking, clothes drying, furnace for all residential, including multifamily buildings. They're trying to make everything retrofit ready. In addition to that requirement, the water heating needs to have a dedicated space that is accommodating of a tank, 2.5 feet by 2.5 feet by 7 feet tall. That needs to be shown on your plans. Second bullet there, as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be one baseline for all fuel choices, which, in some ways you might think, oh, that's taking away our all electric prescriptive pathway. But the third bullet, you'll see that there's actually the performance metrics are actually going to favor electrification going forward. So you actually get a credit going forward if you choose to electrify and trade off some other building measures for that. So they're trying to make a consistent baseline while also crediting electrification in the next code cycle. Last 2 bullets here, taking a zoomed out picture. For multifamily, larger multifamily buildings, there are central heat pump water heater prescriptive pathways. These are large systems, large footprints. That's also coming online by the state code. And on the non-residential side, we're also going to have heat pump baselines for HVAC for those package type of systems. Key takeaways, under the 2019 Energy Code, you can design, build, or alter any residential dwelling to use electricity as the only fuel source. There's no code impediments there. Heat pump water heater is most simply often implemented if you choose a high efficiency near tier 3 heat pump water heater. And we should expect electrification to keep being enabled in future energy code cycles. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Farhad. That was a great presentation. Same with Amy. Edgar or Jordan, I know that there's a lot going on in the chat there. We are a minute or so behind, but I'm wondering, is there a couple questions or 1 or 2 questions you want to ask of our the last couple speakers?
There's one question that did come up for Amy.
Okay.
And so, Amy, I don't know if you had a chance to address that directly, but there was a question about the slide on the % of appliances using gas, whether those numbers were statewide or specific to the Central Coast.
Oh, statewide. It was not specific to the Central Coast.
Thanks, Amy.
Yep.
Any other key questions we want to ask before taking a quick break? Okay, then
I will say, sorry, Mindy, I was on mute. That there is a kind of lively discussion about sound with regard to heat pump water heaters. That is in the chat right now. So if you want to chime in on kind of your experience with that, that'd be great. But I don't know if either Amy or Farhad want to discuss that. I know that that Frank and Ryan will be discussing that as part of what Solarponics does in terms of their sales. So we can also save it.
why don't we, well, let's save it, Jordan, just from a time sense, give people a quick lunch break. So we're going to do a 5-minute break here. So we're going to come back at 10:14. Meanwhile, you can look at, we're going to have you choose a breakout room. Edgar, do you want to sort of tell what that's about?
Yeah, so as we introduced earlier, we'll be doing breakout rooms at the end. We're going to have 4 rooms set up. For each room, we'll have 2 speakers. So if you are interested in sticking around for that speaker meet and greet, just go ahead and please enter into the chat the room that you would like to join, and we'll be tracking that, and we will make sure you're assigned to that room at the end.
Great, thanks, Edgar. So right now, go ahead and do a couple yoga poses, a little stretch, run to the restroom, and we will be right back at 10:14. Michaela, just checking in that you're ready to go in just a second.
Sorry, Mindy, did you say something?
Yeah, just ready. Are you about ready and about gonna start us up again? Just a second.
Yep, I'm ready.
All right, fantastic. Okay, everyone, we're going to go ahead and keep going. I hope you guys had a good little stretch there. I'm going to turn it over to Michaela Topi. She's a program consultant with Frontier Energy and has been doing some market research for us all. Michaela?
Great, thank you, Mindy, for the introduction, and thank you everyone for joining us today for the 3C-REN Winter Forum. So for my presentation, I just want to give you all some context regarding the Tri-County market for heat pump water heaters. This research was done in partnership with Frontier Energy and 3C-REN, and I kind of want to give a shout out to my colleague, Kate Rathbun, who's joined us today and will be answering questions that comes up in the comments. So Mindy, next slide. So to get a basic understanding of the Tri-County heat pump water heater market, my team reviewed the California Residential Appliance Saturation Study, which is also known as RAS, that was conducted by the California Energy Commission from August 2019 to February 2020. About 300,000 households were asked to provide information about their appliances, heating and cooling equipment, their use of renewable technologies, and just general usage of energy. About 10% of those households were based in the Tri-County area. Looking through the study results, the greatest potential for energy savings in the Tri-County area would be properties that currently have natural gas water heaters, which represented 70% of the respondents in the Tri-County area. 16% of those respondents had water heaters between the ages of 9 to 13 years old, and about 12% had units aged 14 years and older. So for the near term future, we can assume that this would be the existing market for water heaters. Sorry, just getting some feedback. And then just also wanted to highlight that from the survey, we can assume that about 53,000 units will be needed water heater replacements just based on their age of their current water heaters within the next 5 years. I would say the prime market for heat pump water heaters for residents in the Tri-County area are those who already have renewable technologies and energy efficient upgrades to their home buildings, such as solar, wind, and battery storage. Combining these technologies with heat pump water heaters will achieve higher energy and cost savings. Study results showed that 15% of respondents in the Tri-County area have existing renewable technologies installed, with 12% planning to install these types of technologies within the next 2 years. However, only 2% of these respondents had solar or electric water heating. And knowing that water heaters are primarily replaced on an emergency basis, these customers will have difficulty finding water heaters that meet their needs. And I would say these should be the target audience for heat pump water heaters. So to the next slide, Mindy. So based on California IOU rates, gas customers will see an average of a $1 increase per therm on their energy bills, while electricity rates will only increase by 10% per kilowatt hour in the Tri-County area. Energy efficient water heating can help buffer against these increasing energy costs. However, savings can vary based on the size and efficiency of both the existing and replacement water heater. However, the greatest variation in savings is going to be determined by the type of existing equipment that's being replaced and whether or not the existing equipment is fueled by just natural gas or natural gas and electricity. Also want to highlight that there's the greater emission savings opportunities will come from heat pump water heaters that's transitioning from an existing storage water heater rather than from a tankless. However, heat pump water heaters are recommended as the residential application to upgrade or replace old water heater units compared to inefficient gas water heaters, as they can protect customers from increasing natural gas. So in the next slide, this slide kind of just gives you a general overview of what the revenue potential can be for heat pump water heaters in the Tri-County market. About, on average, a heat pump water heater costs from $1,800,000 to or $1,800 to $5,000, and the average heat pump water heater installation cost is on average $450 to $1,000. If we assume that all the heat pump water units that can be transitioned within the next 5 years based on age do switch to heat pumps, there could be a minimum of potential revenue of 160 million in this market. However, this cost does not include removal of water heaters permits, replacing of duct work and plumbing needs, and the additional electrical breakers that might be needed, just because those vary by projects. And some of the presenters later today will go in more detail about what they're seeing in regards to profits and revenues in their projects. Do want to highlight one of the barriers to this as well is that many existing water heaters do not currently have electric service at their location. And the additional electrical work, including wiring and in some situation panel upgrades, can be a significant impact to costs, creating a barrier to what might otherwise be a standard installation with the more traditional water heating model. So on my last slide, just wanted to highlight that California is trying to invest $400 million in the electrification market to reduce cost barriers and to help motivate people reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by switching to more energy efficient and less energy intensive technologies. There are a lot of incentives that are currently on the market that are being financed through state and regional entities. And this on this slide only covers heat pump water heaters, but there are also other programs for various other electrification technologies. Also do want to highlight that there's going to be no programs launching in 2022, so keep up to date with these specific program administrators, and then also be aware that some of these programs can be combined with other incentives that are offered in a customer's IOU territory. So that's pretty much all that I had today for everyone. Mindy, do let me know if there is any questions you would like me to address.
Right. And I want to make sure that everyone knows that I believe we have a great fact sheet that Michaela put together, and that there's a link to that should be in the chat. So please go ahead and take a look at that, and you can study those results. Jordan, is there a question?
There are some questions. I would say, depending on time, specific to the time frame for the $1 increase, and just specifics about where the data is coming from. I don't know if you can address any of that quickly, Michaela.
Yeah, just a quick overview. So for the gas rates, was looking at PG&E and SoCal intended gas rates of increasing over the next 5 years. So 2025, those full increases will come into effect. And I don't have the link accessible, but I do believe that information is publicly available on the IOU websites.
Great, thanks, Michaela. So let's go ahead and turn over some of these solutions about how we can build this market. So I'm going to introduce Panama Bartholomy from the Building Decarbonization Coalition and Larry Waters, who's a founder from Electrify My Home. They're going to lead us through our next set of information. I believe, Panama, you're going to start us off.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Mindy. It's always a pleasure to be on the same panel with Michaela. You do such great work, Michaela, and present it so clearly. So thank you for that presentation. And I'm really honored to be on the panel with Larry Waters. I mean, if anybody's doing more heat pump water heaters in the state than Larry Waters, I don't know who they are. So you're in for a real treat with Larry coming up right after me. So you have to get through me to get to Larry. And what I'm going to put you through is giving you an idea about where is state policy going right now, where are local policies going right now, and then where are the programs that can help you be able to get rebates and to be able to buy down the cost of these heat pump water heaters for your customers, and then also marketing programs that you can access to be able to get your name out there as somebody who's offering heat pump water heater programs as well. And then Larry's going to come in and talk about experience on the ground of installing a bunch of these, working with customers and programs, what's working, what's not right now. So that's what we're doing. If I can go to the next slide, please.
Yep.
So this is an op-ed that was written back in 2019 by Commissioner Leanne Randolph of the California Public Utilities Commission. They regulate all of the gas distribution in California, all the gas companies like PG&E. And this was an op-ed she wrote announcing that they were opening up a proceeding to plan for the state's exit from natural gas. And she said in this op-ed, this is the proceeding where we are going to do all the different planning about how the state is going to stop using natural gas in the state. And so it's very clear from the state perspective that we are going to be winding down the gas system, moving off of it and moving over to electricity for our buildings. Next slide, please. The real leadership, though, is happening at the local level, where now 42 local governments over the past year and a half have adopted either a local ban on gas in new construction or local codes that have heavily disincentivized gas in local construction, meaning that if you do build with gas, you need to build it super efficient, and so raising the cost of that construction, or just building with electricity and lowering the cost of that construction. So this is where the real leadership is happening. 42 cities have already adopted, and we have about another 60 on the way. And 2021 is going to be about Southern California starting to see a bunch of adoption. San Diego is going to adopt before the end of the year. Culver City and a number of other cities within the LA County are going to be also adopting. Next slide, please. One of the big changes that's going to be coming from the state is the new building code. All of you, of course, who have to deal with the building code on a daily basis in your work know that we update the building code every 3 years in California, all parts of it. But I'm just going to focus in on part 6 on the energy efficiency code that's updated through the California Energy Commission. And I know many of you on this call are probably installers of water heating equipment in existing buildings. And so the new construction code may not be as relevant for you, but there are going to be a number of prescriptive measures around building electrification that will affect your work moving forward. Next slide, please. So where we're at right now is we are in the 2022 building code update process. In August of this year, they're going to adopt the next building code for Part 6, Title 24, Part 6, the energy efficiency part of the code. And that'll go into effect January 1st, 2023 is when this will go into effect. The current proposal for low-rise residential and low-rise non-residential is this. It would be the first code in the country to require either a heat pump for space heating or a heat pump for water heating. It's going to require higher ventilation standards for those homes that put gas stoves in the units, recognizing for the first time in any code across the country some of the dangers of cooking with gas compared to electricity. So you have to have a higher ventilation, a better ventilation system if you put a gas stove in. They're going to require electric readiness so that if you put in gas appliances for space heating, water heating, cooking, or dryers, you are going to have to pre-wire. You're going to have a panel that's right-sized and pre-wire all of the wiring so that you'll be able to replace those appliances with electric appliances in the future. And you're going to have to preserve space for a heat pump water heater at the point where your water heater is as well. And then in the compliance software for the code, they're going to give an extra incentive of 2 energy design rating points for building all electric. And so the Energy Commission thinks this is going to lead to, over the 3-year time period when this will be in place, about 80% of the market building all electric under this code between 2023 and 2026. Next slide, please. What else you can expect is that air quality management districts are starting to look at the nitrogen oxides that come from buildings and burning gas in buildings. Right now in California, we've done a lot of work on power plants and cars. We haven't done a lot of work on buildings. And so right now, burning gas in buildings is producing 7 times more smog causing pollutants in our entire power plant fleet, and twice as much smog as our entire car fleet driving all over California. And so air quality management districts like the Bay Area Air Quality Management District and the South Coast Air Quality Management District in LA have announced this year they're going to be putting regulations on appliances, on water heaters and on space heaters, so that any water heater or space heater that's sold within those jurisdictions is going to have near zero NOx. Usually those are the 2 leading air districts, and other air districts in the state then begin to look to adopt those similar regs. So you can start to look at your Central Coast air quality management districts following the lead here. As I mentioned, we got about another 60 cities that are working on codes for new construction, and then many local governments are moving to existing buildings. Next slide, please. And then advance at 1. What you're also going to see, as Michaela mentioned, is about $400 million in programs rolling out over the next 9 months. These will be programs from PG&E. These will be programs from the state directly, and these will be programs from your local community choice aggregator, all coming together and combined. But I'm going to highlight 2 programs that are going to be most important for heat pump water heaters right now. Next slide, please. And those are going to be the Self-Generation Incentive Program and the Tech Program. The Self-Generation Incentive Program, we're expecting within the next week or 2, the proposal from the state for how to spend $44 million of Self-Generation Incentive Program dollars on heat pump water heaters. We think this is going to be a rebate along the lines of $1,500 per unit, and then an additional installation cost coverage of some additional money as well. And so we will definitely be in touch with 3C-REN about when that proposal comes out. We expect the money to be able to hit the ground probably in Q3 of this year, of that $44 million. The Tech Program is a program focused on existing buildings and how to encourage heat pump water heaters and encourage heat pump space heaters as well. This is a $240 million program over the next 4 years, and it's going to be responsible for about 50,000 heat pump water heaters being installed. Comprehensive program with a bunch of community education, workforce development, and other activities. Combined, these 2 programs are going to fund about 75,000 heat pump water heaters across California. And so it's folks like you coming to events like this and learning about the program up front that are going to be able to most easily and early use these programs to be able to help your customers. Next slide, please. I mentioned that we want to find ways to help you get the word out to your customers, and also help your customers really trust that electrification is a good pathway forward. And so we, with a bunch of utilities, have sponsored a statewide consumer education program called the Switches On. You can go to switcheson.org and you can find all this information about all the questions you would have about all electric living. Like, is it a good idea? What about blackouts? What will this do to my bill? Tell me more about heat pumps. All these questions are answered on this website in a very easily accessible way. That's all well and good. The 2 things that people are most excited about this campaign about, though, are on the next slide. We have a part of the website where you can search by your zip code to find all of the rebates that are available to you, and all of the contractors that we pre-screen for each geographic area to be able to highlight them as these folks are installing heat pump water heaters in your territory. We pre-screen them. We've looked at their qualifications. We've done 3 reference checks. They have the right insurance, and we put these up on the website to highlight them so that you can go ahead and find them. Next slide, please. We don't have a lot of incentives to highlight yet for the zip codes of the Central Coast. We're expecting, as the self-generation incentive program and the tech program start offering rebates in Q3 of this year, that these are going to be here. And so instead of you having to go and look around for all these different rebate programs, we wanted to have one place where both you and your customers can go to see all the rebates available to them. Next slide, please. And say you wanted to look at contractors for the Central Coast. Well, based on just the 93940, right now, if you sign up on this website, you are going to have a great opportunity to be some of the first people that we highlight. Because right now, Tesla Solutions has been the only one that signed up to be able to offer electrification on the Central Coast. There is no cost to sign up on this website. The only cost is about 20 minutes of time to put your information in, provide us with references, we check them, and then we have now a multi-million-dollar ad campaign that is pushing people to this website and then pushing people to your contact information to help you get bids and to help you get jobs. And so these are some of the ways that the state and locals, your Wren, your local governments, and we are trying to work together to get you the funding you need to be able to lower the upfront cost, and then the marketing help you need to be able to go ahead and help people find you so that you can do this work. We do have marketing material for co-marketing with contractors through the switches on, so that you're able to use a Shutterfly account and be able to co-brand with the campaign with your logo and the campaign's logo together to be able to market your electrification services and your heat pump water heater services. So go on to switcheson.org, click on the contractor panel in the upper right, and you'll be able to join as part of the marketing campaign. Next slide. So with that, just let me finish up. State and local policy is driving towards getting rid of combustion in buildings. It's very clear, and there's a large investments of incentives coming. The people that are stepping up early are the ones that are going to be able to most benefit from this money, rather than the ones at the end, which will be doing this under a regulatory no incentive pathway. We're expecting an all electric code in 2025 and a big step forward in 2022. And for non-residential high-rise, probably in 2028. And really, because of the regulations on gas appliances, we're thinking over the next decade and a half, we're not going to be installing gas appliances in California anymore. So now I'm going to hand it over to Larry, who can talk about what that looks like on the ground. Thank you very much. Thank you for 3C-REN for having me, and have a great rest of the conference.
Hi, my name is Larry Waters from Electrify My Home, and I'm out there putting some of these heat pumps in. I just wanted to share a little bit of experience with you. This is kind of geared towards the contractor. Next slide, please. We're going to bang through this really with a rapid 411 on the advantages of heat pump water heaters to contractors. My background, I've been around the trade, HVAC trade, for about 37 years. I had the crossroads last year, 2019. I was thinking of retiring, and instead I started this Electrify My Home business. Some days I wish I would have retired, but this is mostly very exciting. I'm even more excited after Panama talking about how much incentive money is going to be available for these heat pumps. We installed our first net zero energy system in 2015, saving the customer $2,500 a year. And I kind of got sprung out on doing these electric systems. And since then, I've put over 200 mostly central heat pump systems all throughout the Bay Area. And we're pushing just under 100 of these water heaters over the last 5 years. Next slide, please. What's wrong with gas and what's right with electric? I think we all know that, or we wouldn't be on this call, but the pollution, venting issues, carbon monoxide risk, and rising costs of gas are all determinative factors on moving towards electric. We've found a lot of these water heaters have been great solutions for venting issues when we've gone in and done air sealing in people's houses, and then, you know, the pressure differentials in the house are risking the flue to vent back into the house. So the heat pump water heaters don't do that. They're obviously clean, economical to operate, super safe, and comfortable. Next slide, please. And they don't cost much to operate. Compared to a gas water heater, these are significantly less expensive to operate. I think a couple of people have covered that today. This is really an easy sell to the consumer, and I'm really want to give the contractors the idea that we can install these and make more money. It's a little harder work, but once you've done a couple, it's super easy. And anybody that is looking towards getting renewables or has renewables on the roof, these systems are usually offset by just a couple of additional solar panels. Next slide, please. COPs as high as 4.0 compared to most water heaters at 0.62. That's a huge savings in energy cost overall. I think we've covered that. Some of the slides have said as much as $4,000 over the life of the system. These systems are multifunctional, so they fit the needs of the consumer really well. I have a lot of them. I instruct my customers to keep them in heat pump only mode. We run the temperature up on them to 140 degrees, and then we install a mixing valve and kind of dial that into 120, 125. But they also give the ability, so when the kids come home from college around Christmas, they can go out there and pop it into high recovery mode, and it takes care of whatever the load may be. Like I mentioned before, they solve venting problems. We've had a lot of these go in where we just couldn't get the existing tank water heaters vent properly. This really saves on that. Back in the day, we were installing a lot of instantaneous water heaters with closed vent loops. These are a much better solution. It's a small usage kilowatt for offset solar. We mentioned that, 800 kilowatts per year. I've got some of these operating in that range. There's 2 solar panels to offset. This is a great best first electrification step, right? Water heaters are going to be the thing that are going to have the shortest life cycle. This is often the first way people are kind of dipping their toes in the water for electrification. And we talked a minute ago, one of the other presenters talked about the emergency basis and having to install a water heater really quickly in an emergency. I've actually had customers wait up to a week with no hot water so they could get a heat pump installed instead of a new gas water heater. So the right motivated person. Incentives and rebates, 3C-REN, sounds like they got a great program coming up. I'm up here in the Bay Area, which is Bay-REN territory. There's a combination of about $2,000 worth of rebates available up here now. I'm really looking forward to that SGIP. Sounds pretty cool. And carbon footprint reduction. This is good to a lot of customers. Really like this idea. It's a great first step. Extremely desirable outcome for many environmentally conscious homeowners. And word gets around. We put one of these in the neighborhood, and before we know it, we're getting 4 or 5 more on that street. It's pretty cool the way that works. Next slide, please. But these are what you need to think about if you're a contractor, and this is really geared towards contractors. The initial cost is higher, but sold properly, these can be way more profitable. And I've had contractors tell me that they don't want to install these because they're just going to be a pain and they're not going to make any money on them. But I'm going to show you in a minute how that's not true. They do require an electrical circuit that can add time and complicated install for some contractors. But my recommendation is find an electrician that you can work with that operates at a reasonable cost if you're not capable of doing it yourself, and figure that cost into the project cost, and you'll still be profitable. I've had electricians run some of these circuits, and I've had my guys run some of the circuits, and I've never had a circuit that costs more than $750. These do take up a lot of space compared to a traditional gas tank, so you have to be cognizant of that. And the way that they don't plumb just from the top anymore like a traditional gas tank water heater. So you have to make provisions for where the water is going to come in and out. We do have a condensate drain line that we don't have on typical. We do have to still pipe the TP valve outside, and we have the electrical circuit. So there's a lot going on in a small space. And in some situations, you're going to want to vent these out because of noise or overcooling of a specific location. And you want to make sure that you make the provisions in advance for those vents to go in. Otherwise, you'll be fighting it later. And I will tell you that all of this comes from experience. I learned all these things the hard way. Not suitable for small closets. Back one. Not suitable for small closets. Heavy. And you need 2 guys to move these into position on the bigger ones, and they can be loud. This is a real issue. I've got some out there that I'm dealing with customers, noise sensitive customers. You think it's not very much sound until your house is super quiet. Next slide, please. So if you're a plumber or you're a contractor out there and you're installing a gas tank water heater for $2,200, hallelujah, high fives, because most of the people that call me for gas water heaters before I tell them I don't do them are looking at other contractors doing them for $1,400 and $1,500, and those people are not making any money installing those. So at a $2,200 sales price with the appliance, miscellaneous pieces, and permits, you have $1,124 worth of fixed costs. You can do these pretty quick in about 5 hours of picking it up, installing it, draining the old one. If your company like mine has about 21% overhead, your variable costs are $937. The total cost is $2,061. We've officially made $139 profit off of that. I don't know how anybody can stay in business installing water heaters and making $139 profit. Compared to the heat pump water heater, our average price on these with the electrical circuit and the permit is right at $6,400. That's for a 65-gallon tank is what we install mostly. The 50s and 40s are a little bit less expensive, but not much. The appliance itself, $1,623, and these are prices I am paying including tax. Miscellaneous cost on that, because we have a little bit more material that we need. We don't need a gas line or flue pipe, but we do install a mixing valve on each one of these units so that I can dial in that. I can really increase the tank temperature, which gives me a larger return capacity. And then I dial down the temperature at the mixing valve, and that gives me a lot more storage capacity. It's like keeping that battery charged even better. But my direct fixed cost on this one, $3,188. I have in here under other, that's $1,000 that you can include in this for a subcontractor to put in the electrical circuit. So I was generous on that. It takes about 12 hours to install one of these. We have one guy out there for 8 hours, and I have a logistics guy go out in the morning and help them move it into position. So I get about 12 hours wrapped up in these, sometimes less. We have our, again, 21% overhead, our variable cost, $2,848. We're making a net profit on these of about $728 a piece. And we got, you can see our overhead is better. So that job is bringing in $1,344 to the bottom line before profit, versus the other water heater is at $462. So they make sense financially for the consumer, and they make sense financially for the contractor. We're doing a lot of these. I get phone calls 3-4 times a week for these now. I've had a customer, like I said, wait a week to have one installed. So they're not great if somebody's calling and it's leaking water all over the garage and they need an instant solution. You're going to have to go out there and address that, and then convince the customer that they need to wait a day or two. That may be an uphill battle, but it can be done. Next slide, please. Any questions? I guess I'll be in group number 4 if you have any questions for me. Thanks a lot for letting me present here today, and it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Larry. Thank you, Panama. And yeah, just a great reminder. We're going to move on to Solarponics and their presentation, but we will be having this networking effort right after here. So remember to put your room in on the chat so we can follow that up. Before we go on, any quick questions, Jordan, that we want to hit for Larry or Panama?
Let's see here. Not right off the top here, but I'm sure if there are, that they can be asked during the meet and greet.
Fantastic. Okay, great. And which room there? Well, we'll go over the rooms in a few minutes as well. So let me turn it over to Ryan and Frank. Ryan Montague, who's a service manager at Solarponics, and Frank Scotty, who's the marketing director at Solarponics. I think, Ryan, are you starting us off?
Yeah, I'm going to start us off.
Great.
All right, this is the wrong slide, though. This is not Ryan's slide. Yes, go that. Well, one more. Nope. Yep. Nope. Okay, slow down. Back one, please. There you go. All right. Hey, everybody. How's it going? My name is Ryan Montague. I'm the service manager at Solarponics.
I'm going to kind of go over some of the logistical hurdles needed. Larry did a great job, kind of went over a bunch of this stuff. But first and foremost, obviously, it's going to be the electrical circuit. We're swapping out gas for electric, so there's not going to be one there. Some of you guys are going to be comfortable running a circuit. Luckily for us, we do solar electric, so we've got everybody in-house that can do that. So it makes installing fairly easy for us. But any other plumbing contractors out there, I'm sure you've met some reputable electrical contractors in the past. So get together with one of them. You guys can both make a profit on the job. So that's fairly easy to overcome, but that is the major one that you need to consider. Airspace is the next. You know, if it's in a garage, you're good to go. It's super straightforward. Some of the ones that are in an interior hall closet, you know, that's probably not going to work unless you can get some venting going. But there are ones that are pretty cookie cutter. You need around 1,000 cubic feet, you know, 10 by 10 by 10 room, or you can vent it. And then the other one that's you got to do is condensate. Either, you know, run your own line. If you're replacing a water heater, there could be a copper line that runs outside. It is not corrosive like a high efficiency tankless water heater would be. So you can use that line. You still do have to run a relief line though as well. So those are like the three major ones you've got to overcome. Definitely doable. Some spots are going to be easier than others. The other considerations is venting. You know, you can vent it out if you want. We've had some customers pull from the garage and then they run a vent out for the exhaust. If you live in a warm climate, it's great to be able to kind of air condition your garage during the summer, but you don't necessarily want to cool that down as well during the winter. So we can run a vent outside with a damper on it where you can close it off, either have it vent into the garage or vent outside. It's pretty trick. It's also, you know, something that's going to add some comfort for the client in the long run. The next one, obviously, you got to think about is the noise. You just want to let the customer know that it's going to add a little bit of noise and just make sure they're comfortable with that. Just have all that out there first so that they know what they're getting into. And recovery time, it's going to be longer than a gas tank. Just make sure the customer knows about it. Go over all those aspects with them. Frank's had one installed for quite a while now, so he can talk about all that. But yeah, there's just a few things you got to overcome, but it's definitely doable. We've been doing quite a few of them for the past 6 or so years. On another note, we also install radiant heating for a lot of homes, and probably 50% of our new installs are all heat pumps. So the electrification of California is in many different aspects, and you know we're looking forward to being part of that. So thank you for your guys' time. Frank, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Is this your slide then, Frank?
No, go back to that one. Let's start with this one.
Okay, great.
Yep. So, hi, I'm Frank Scotti. I have kind of a unique take on this because, one, I'm a marketing professional. Obviously, I'm in the industry. Solar Appliance is sustainable energy. And 3, I'm a customer. I installed the heat pump in 2014 with my solar. And one of the reasons why I was getting solar at the same time, so that I eliminated my cost completely. I'll show you the case study from that after this. But so what I wanted to talk with you guys about is from a consumer point of view, what has worked, what have we learned from a consumer sales point of view that gets the customer interested and gets them to pull the trigger on this product. And obviously the first one is, what is it? And we know what it is now, so we have to figure out a nice, simple, easy way to communicate with the customer. What is it? I think AB had a great slide that talked about it. You know, it moves heat from one place to another, so they understand that it's something different than their standard water heater. The next question that they're going to say is, well, why do I want one? So you want to make sure that you differentiate the features, which is what is it? That's how it actually operates. And then why do I want one? Are the benefits? Those are the feel good sort of, you know, the id and the ego, the emotional part of the product. You want one for health, safety, you know, the condition of your current water heater may be failing. So you want one, it's a good time to replace it. You want one because it's great for the environment. So more of the benefits of why after they find out what it is. So we first have to explain what is the heat pump in a very simple way that doesn't confuse the customer and overcomplicate it. We ran into this in solar, you know, 10, 15 years ago when we started doing a lot of solar electric, is if we overcomplicated the product, the customer gets confused and it seems like a lot of work and they tend to shy away with it. The third point is the cost justification. Why do you want one? Great. Oh, okay. So the next question they say is, how much is it? Well, so we justify the cost based upon the savings. It's going to be more upfront, but you're going to save long term. So we like to do a 10-year cost of operation, a 10-year cost of savings when showing the customer why or how we can justify the cost of the heat pump, much like we do with solar electric. Is you're prepaying for your energy up front, but your savings on the back end are going to be really great. And don't forget all these great benefits. Well, as Ryan mentioned, and as Larry also mentioned, the drawbacks, the considerations are the noise. They gotta know and be clear that it makes a noise when that heat pump turns on. And as much as we can, give them an example of what that sounds like. It's like a box fan that you get from Home Depot. It's about that loud, because we don't want them calling back and complaining after the fact and being unhappy with this product at a point where we can't really fix it. And the other considerations are if we're going to have to, if Ryan has to put in a gas line or electrical, whatever you have to do, there may be some drywall being taken out. The water heater may be moved to a different side of the wall. I don't know, whatever it is, that it's not a simple swap, but we don't want to make it scary or complicated for the customer, but we do want to let them know that because it's a much better product, it sometimes takes a little bit more work, and that kind of justifies the cost too. And super key for us is always end on the feel good. When we're pitching the heat pump water heater, is we try and circle back to the benefits. Why do I want one? Remember why you wanted one. Remember why we're talking about this heat pump. You know, it is great for the environment, and it improves air quality, and it eliminates, you know, carbon monoxide and nitrogen dioxide and all those other feel good things. So if we go to the next slide, which is the case study, this one here, kind of hard to read, but this is actually my house, and we actually replaced it because I was on propane, which saved a whole lot more, but a natural gas replacement gives me the same benefits as far as eliminating all the health issues. One of the things that I've learned in doing this was the recovery time. That I went from a 50-gallon, I was replacing a 50-gallon water heater and replaced it with a 50-gallon heat pump water heater. You know, we're a family of 4, I had 2 boys, and because the recovery time was a little bit slower, sometimes we had issues with the recovery of the tank not being enough. So if I would do it again, I probably would have increased to an 80-gallon tank. It's just a consideration of that recovery time. Quiet in the house, please, guys. Thank you. One last thing I wanted to remind you or say that is kind of neat about, I turned the fan or the noise into a positive. Every time I go out in the garage and I hear that pump or that fan running, in my mind, I'm thinking I'm saving money. I'm saving money. So I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool thought. I wonder if I can communicate to the customers. When that fan's going, you're saving money because I'm being more energy efficient. And since we're a little bit behind on time, I think that is good enough, and I can answer the rest in the breakout session. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Frank. Thanks, Ryan. So I am going to go ahead and move us on to our wrap up today, because we've learned a lot here. I think the baseline is that there's a lot of money coming out in the pipeline for contractors and for homeowners to make this transition to electricity and run heat pump water heaters. and that we can make money at it and be doing the right thing. So huge opportunity here at the end of the day, and really exciting. So let me have us move on to Ian, who's going to close today and get us ready for our meet and greet with all of our speakers. Before we do that, do you want to just remind us what are those different meet and greet rooms, Edgar, and what number should they be putting on?
I just actually entered that into the chat. So,
okay, great. So take a look at the chat, folks, and you can see what are the different rooms and what are the ones that you can join in if you're not on it all the way. Ian, let me turn over to you so you can wrap us up today.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Mindy. Yeah, so just to reiterate kind of 3C-REN's suite of programs we have on offer to you all. We've got the Energy Code Connect program, which today's forum falls under. Within the program, we have 3 distinct services. We offer trainings that are designed to increase overall energy code comprehension, compliance, and enforcement. We offer customized services like our Energy Code Coach, which is an over-the-phone, online, over-the-counter, and in the field Title 24 consultation service. And then regional forums like we've gathered here today. We also have the Building Performance Training Program, which serves current and prospective building professionals with technical trainings related to building science principles and systems for high-performing buildings, as well as soft skills trainings such as sales, marketing, and communication techniques in order to grow your business or advance your career. And then our home energy savings program that will be offering free and discounted home upgrades for both multi and single family homes. Stay tuned for the launch of our multifamily program in the coming few months. Next slide, please. So just in closing, today we had AIA and ICC learning units available. You're welcome to reach out to Sean Burns or Jordan Garbayo, really any of us for that matter, if you by chance didn't include your license number or have any questions regarding the units. Later today, you'll see an email from us with a brief follow-up survey. We do appreciate any and all feedback. Ultimately, it helps us deliver better events and better serve you. You'll also receive slides, a recording, and any associated links from today. A little plug, as of Monday, the County of Santa Barbara is hiring. They're looking for an energy portfolio manager. In the position, you'd be working about half of your time with 3C-REN. So that would be awesome. We always appreciate any of the help we can get. And then lastly, we have an excellent list of courses coming up through the rest of winter and into the spring. On March 16th, next week, we have Building Blocks of Passive House Performance. March 18th, we have QII for contractors. On March 25th, we have residential retrofits, the Title 24 best practices for high performance buildings. And then we are currently scheduling many more courses through Q, so keep your eyes peeled for that calendar to be posted soon. You're welcome to visit our website, 3cren.org, to find more event specifics and registration. Next slide, please. So like I said, visit our website, 3cren.org. You're welcome to contact us at the email here above, info@3c-ren.org. And with that, thank you guys all today joining us, both our speakers and you participating. To those of you who are new to our network, welcome. We encourage you guys to get involved and look forward to seeing your faces in future offerings. So with that, we will go into our meet and greet breakout rooms. If you haven't already, please input in the chat which room you'd like to join, and we'll get those things rolling.
Great, thanks, Ian. Edgar, do you want to lead people through this as we go to this next step?
Yeah, of course.